Hello and welcome to the pre-edition of the Writer's Room. I'm starting a little early because I have a feeling a lot of people are going to want to get in tonight and share their comments about where this show will go. I am ultimately hoping to get both Buddy, Lord, William, and John back on the air if I can. But anyway, let's talk about various things. For those of you who may not have been following at the time, roughly a year ago, I was doing a long form show every Wednesday called The Writer's Room, in which we would get various writers. We actually had a revolving schedule. What we'd do is that we would do every other week, the writers would sit in as a group and we'd all talk about writing and answer audience questions on technique and just, well, the craft of writing. And then the next week after that, we would interview an established author or do a topic and then go back to, again, the writer's circle. And it was an alternating schedule. And I want back, but also because I know we are all very busy people, I was thinking, as far as the writer's circle is concerned, we could even have a am I turning into a robot again? I think so. Hey, Kat, can you do me a favor? Can you reach around there and unplug the internet cable, and I'll just jack it into this thing?
Okay. But it's not plugged in out there.
Why?
I don't know. I thought you had unplugged.
Oh, it's plugged in.
Oh, it's unplugged? It's unplugged.
Yeah, it's plugged in. It's good.
Okay.
But as I wait for guests to pop in, as I said, I started early for that reason. Let's tear into it. What kind of things do you want from this show, you guys? Also, let everyone know I'm going live because right now there's only 9 of you, and that means that YouTube's not informing anyone, as usual. Let's see. Yeah, dead air. That's great. Okay, which side is it on? Is it this side? There we go. There we go. Okay, hopefully that'll improve the connection. We're plugged directly into the internet now. We'll do it live. Fuck it. But anyway, yeah, the idea. Oh, there you go. You just said lagging. Lovely. Let me know if it gets any better. Shit. Are we not going to be able to do this? Yeah, great. Okay, well, I will talk. Hopefully the connection will improve. Otherwise, I guess this is going to be a very short revival show. Who's here with me tonight? I see a lot of comments from Wolf.
Real quick, does it know to look at the landline rather than...
This is your computer. I don't know. Okay, so basically the connection's going to hell. That's great.
There we go.
It knows?
Yeah, it knows.
Okay, yeah, the signal has not improved, apparently.
Okay.
So, yeah, you guys tell me if the signal gets any damn better. I mean, I may have to just call it an early night, which would really suck. But, yeah, how am I sounding? I don't know if this is just YouTube sucking or if it's the local connection having problems. I don't know. I may have to call it a night. Okay. Champagne. Okay, let's see. JW says, I'd be interested in hearing about the creative process, developing themes and characters. Well, that is exactly the aim of this show. And furthermore, I would like to, anybody out there who's currently got a book published or is in the process of writing, by all means, contact me. Okay, still robotic, lovely.
I was just running it on my phone. You're fine.
Other people are having trouble, though.
Mm.
Sounds fine. Potato cam authenticity. Yeah, this is not good. Yeah, everything's fine on our end. So currently, I will give you a quick update on the Boob book, as we've been calling it. Geez, everyone in there is commenting on either the sound or the picture. Is there a hurricane or something?
Yes.
Oh, well, maybe that's it.
It's in Florida.
That could be actually disturbing the net, just in general. Everyone could either, there could be signals being routed through. I don't know.
But yeah, there's a really big hurricane hitting Florida right now.
So how are my friends in Florida? Does that mean we're not going to hear from Fiona? She's probably currently watching alligators going flying by her window right now. So yeah, anyway, let's see. Where's it? Okay, audio cleared up. Good, finally. All right, so let's start talking about this show. Like I said, this is the one where, well, essentially, hopefully, we will get me and other writers, and you just pick our brains on technique. I was kind of hoping people would show up a little sooner. I know I sent Dungeon Delver a link a few minutes ago. Make that shit. Crocnado. Well, yeah, of course, Crocnado. Okay, you guys, I need to hear from your end now. All right. Owen, I definitely want to hear more about writing. I've really been falling in love with Beetle Blaze. I've been falling out of love with Beetle Blaze and want to work on what I came up with. Beetle. Okay, so basically what you're saying is that you're beginning to lose interest in this project. How long have you been working on this thing, Owen? I know that as long as I've known you, it's been kind of the constant in your mind and in your life. Falling out of love with a project is normal. Actually, I don't know if it's falling out of love. I mean, for me, it's more of a frustration and just needing to step away. Sometimes when you've got another question, Owen. Have you ever finished a short story or even a short comic? That's really important. The first step for anyone who's an aspiring writer, do not dive in to write your novel or your great graphic novel. That is a huge mistake, and especially don't do a multi-part epic. That is an even bigger mistake. The first thing you always want to do is prove to yourself you can actually get something done. Write a short story, get it online, publish it, or write and illustrate a single issue of a comic. After you do that, then move up to doing a single novel or graphic novel. And once you're able to do that a couple times, then jump into your multi-part epic. I think where so many young creators completely fail is they decide they're going to jump in and do their Game of Thrones or Lord of the Rings size project. And as you can imagine, that does not go too well. You get frustrated very quickly, and the next thing you know, you've given up. Does that help? Really, I would prefer you actually tell me a little bit more about what's troubling you with staying on topic with this. Hey there, Elton. So Elton is another creator who's currently working on his own graphic novel series. Do you have any questions, comments regarding your work? Okay, we've got Bill. Hey there, Bill.
What's happening, man?
Well, I am discussing. Oh, by the way, Kat, it's time.
Okay.
You're not disgusting. Don't put yourself down like that, Ishi.
Party? or is it a party?
Oh yeah, it's absolutely a party, Kat, and everyone's invited.
Everyone's invited.
If I'm here, it's a party.
Well, a year ago, I had a show that I would do weekly with a few other writers called The Writers' Room. And the point is that we would talk techniques. So much at the time with Comicsgate, so much focus was on strictly the art. It was always the art.
Okay.
And, that's only half of the process. Pictures without a story does not really make a comic, and I realize that there's that school of thought left over from the 90s from Image that the words were just there to accompany pictures. And no, absolutely not. So we decided we'd start up a show that would focus on the craft of writing for novels and graphic novels. We had 3 solid guests that formed the Writers' Circle, which was William. I forget his last name. I always forget his last name.
Hastings.
William Hastings, Buddy Lord, and John Walsh. And it went great. And then we'd alternate between the Writers' Circle, and then the next week I'd interview somebody who's established and talk to them about their book in progress, and then alternate back out again to the Writers' Circle. And we do topics, we do interviews. We'd usually get derailed.
Always get derailed.
Yeah.
That's half the fun.
So I know that you've published games. Have you actually done anything in the world of prose?
No.
No.
I mean,
okay.
I've tried to write it. I've tried to write it, but nothing has ever been published.
Okay.
So if I'm a bad fit for this, I completely understand.
No, I don't think so. I mean, it's still writing.
Mm-hmm.
Wolf, definitely want to take your advice and show off a short action scene in my story. I'm divided if I want the fighters to be kaiju sized.
I don't know. I couldn't answer that. That sounds like a personal decision.
I mean, one thing I'm kind of doing is broadening my horizons a little bit. Like, I just, I'm like Conan. I have no tongue for it when it comes to putting words together in a fashion that is pleasing. But I started introducing a few elements into my very long-running D&D campaign. And I thought, other people might find this interesting too. And so I posted up on the our AD&D subreddit, just because I'm a classic D&D nerd. And it seemed to get some popular, or some positive feedback, rather, excuse me. And based on the feedback, I'm kind of wondering if that might be a good way for me to kind of start working out those muscles, if that makes sense. I mean, just saying what happened in the weekly game is not a particularly creative writing pursuit, but at the same time, it can get there. Does this make sense? I feel like
yeah. One thing I would say, though, another aspiring writer error that people make quite a bit is trying to write their game directly to the page. I can't tell you how many times we've encountered that. And, gaming, like life, you got to leave out all the parts that aren't interesting to the audience. And,
Sure.
it doesn't really flow in a logical form that pulls you from one scene to the next. So I would say, you'd want to follow it in spirit. We got another comment from Owen, who had asked about falling out of love with his stories. Yeah.
Oh, do you want me to read it?
Yeah.
Okay, finishing is a problem of mine, so I do want to improve that. The problem with Beetle Blaze is that I don't have a clear ending. I know it ends with Beetle Blaze killing Galvan.
Well, the problem is I don't know enough about the story to really answer that. So I don't know what to tell you at this point. I need more familiarity with your story arc.
Victoria, what would you consider a short story?
Very good question. Very, very good question indeed. Typically, when you're sending stories out to be published, 5,000 words is the sweet spot. That's usually what they want. Although in reality, a short story is anywhere between 5,000 words to 15,000. After 15,000, you're really pushing it.
Actually, with writing, trying to translate the epics of your characters into stories, Delver, are you writing them as short stories, or are you doing them as long format?
No, this is strictly a post game show kind of
okay.
approach. The party did this, the party did that. If I hit them with a particularly good bit of dialogue, or if they said something that was that was really cool, I'll quote that verbatim. I mean, I know this is not writing. I know it's not prose. It's just like, hey, some cool shit went on in my game, and in order, here's what happened. But I find like I've been suffering from terrible writer's block. I have 3 module projects that are just, I can't even call them late at this point. I just, they'll happen when they happen, and it's bugging the hell out of me. And so by doing this, I'm hoping that it's going to be like, football player blows his knee out and that leg gets weak. So he's got to go to the gym and start working it. He's not necessarily making football plays with it, but he's toning up the muscle. And that's what I'm kind of hoping this will do, is tone up the muscle.
Universally, for any writer's block, there are a number of techniques people use. As I've talked about, often I will put together a soundtrack for what I'm writing, a collection of songs that fire off the emotions and feelings that I'm trying to capture in the story. And that's also a good thing to help you get through when you have a long gap between writing sessions. Another technique that I've known a lot of writers use, and this can work for art as well, or essentially any medium, is when that writer's block hits, just go to another project. Just let that simmer in your brain for a couple days or even a week, work on something else, and then come back to it. John Walsh that's his technique, and it's been very effective for him. Do you have any thoughts?
Well, I'm not a writer, but
you manage those insane cats.
Yeah, true. And what I can say is, if you focus too much or you try too hard to force it, you're just going to make it worse. It's just like with any artistic endeavor. So, either work on something else or take a break, like step away. Both are really good techniques. But if you've got 3 of them, is it that you're just not feeling all 3 of them, or was it just a take of you needed to step away and you haven't returned to them, or?
A tiny little bit from column A, a whole lot of column B. And I mean, I'll be, I'm going to say straight up, I'm sitting in a room surrounded by all this stuff. So it's like, I need to really get some writing done. Let's play a little Far Cry 5 first. Just get the creative juices flowing, and then I'll come back to it. Or I bet if I paint some minis and listen to some music, that'll get the gears turning, and I'll be it. And then, I look up and it's, I got to cook dinner. I can't write now, and it just becomes this constant push, you know, find an excuse to push things back, find another excuse to push
that
things
is
back.
that is a trap.
Mm-hmm.
That is the worst trap. Is when you're just your mind's finding excuses to put it off and not address what needs to be addressed. And I hate to say it, that just comes down to discipline. There's really no other. You just discipline. There's no other way to do it. Or you have an editor with a writing crop. Very effective.
No,
Well, that comes down to discipline too, just a different kind. But
it's going to bust
my kind
heads.
comes with leather.
Yeah, if you've got an editor, it's like, no, you've got a deadline. You're doing it.
Mm.
You are going to get this done. It'll get done.
I tell you, one of the best tools I ever had for writing, and like an idiot, I gave it away, was this complete piece of shit laptop. I mean, it functioned fine. It would turn on, go into Windows. Windows 2000 was like the best Windows it could load. It couldn't play games. Running media player was about the most it could do without falling over and catching on fire. And I would sit out in the dining room with it during the day when I was working on Gary's projects. And I could, I could maintain a really healthy output because no Facebook, no video games, no browsing Reddit, nothing. So maybe I just need to go on eBay and buy myself like a crap single 4 Pentium 3 laptop.
I've got a laptop for writing that has a word processing program on it. That's it. Nothing else. It has no internet connection. It never touches the net. It's strictly for writing for that reason.
Yeah. My
well, Elton has a question.
Oh.
Elton says, well, we're working on backgrounds for the characters. I think that is something that will be useful later. But tell me, you think it is good to establish characters first or as you go?
Well, that depends. I mean, I would say definitely when you're going to write a story, you should have a background of who they are. It's important that you know what kind of childhood they had. It's important, if they went to war, what years they were overseas. You want to know these things. This is vital. Mm-hmm. And then those little details will pop up on their own as you're writing, well, his mom worked at a 5 and dime store. That's the kind of thing that'll just pop up while you're writing. And that's cool. I mean, that'll happen on its own. But yes, you absolutely do want to have a general bio of who they are. And it'll change. It'll change over time as you develop your story. But you really don't want to just go in blind. Oh, hey, it's Star Storyteller, Claire.
Hey, everybody.
Howdy.
Hey.
Hey, I was good. I was about to go to the gym, but I'm like, oh, wait, I'm away. And my mom's with the baby. I can be here. I know that's terrible, but I did work out. I did upper body, that like a couple sets with my arms, and that's it. But that's okay. I'd rather do one kind of intensive and then forget about it. Anyway, hi. How's everybody doing?
Doing okay. So do you want to mention any what's going on with your project?
Well, I got a short story somewhat finished. Actually he's called oh gosh, what's his Twitter username? Twitless. Edited it for me. And he actually did a whole that guy's like way overqualified in my opinion, because he like did all the formatting where you make it the eye smaller and all the stuff. Yeah. And I was, bless his heart, I was kind of like, oh my gosh, this is a ton to learn all at once. I'm like, I'm just putting this in like Clip Studio at some point, but it was really cool. He actually has a completed comic called Omega Girl, I think. And that was his, like, I tried to offer money, and he's like, no, if you can just promote my comic. It's like, I think it's like print on demand or something, but it's like $4 for it. I just, the link again somewhere. But, so I did that, but I was kind of bored with that one too because I wanted to do something shorter. But you jogged my memory. I actually did a long time ago when I was doing like an illustration course. A long time ago, I finished a project. I finished one. And it was all colored. It's on my DeviantArt account. That's how ancient of days that is. But and I was like, oh, I have that. But I'm also like, should I show it? Or would that be like, oh my gosh, so freaking old? I don't even know. But I'm also, I think the other thing is the other main project I have, there's so much complexity to it because
She cut out.
I kind of need like a structured. Oh, sorry. Am I still there?
Yeah, you're here.
Okay. I have like I need a constructed language to be like, because it's a made up Eastern European, I actually have to think about, okay, where it's like almost historical fiction. Like, how do you write historical fiction? Because that one is like, okay, yeah, it's got elements of not like a lot of fantasy, but it's really based in history. So I'm like thinking, okay, it's post-Soviet. There's just a lot of complexity. I'm like, oh my gosh. I see why you mean
So, Kat,
start with something smaller.
You've edited historical fiction, right?
A little bit, yeah.
What would your advice be? I
Um,
mean, Williams was kind of along that lines, wasn't it? No?
no, his is high sci-fi. Not sorry, high fantasy. So no. Not his is not historical fiction. He borrowed a lot from history, but it was everything is definitely his own world. In the great book though. No, what I would say for historical fiction, the best thing to do is research the time period and that area of the world as much as possible. Now I understand you were saying you were trying to come up with a language. If this is Earth Prime, as it were, with a with your own country in the middle, I'd say look at the different countries that surround it and figure what's the history, what peoples invaded it. To use Eastern Europe as an example, you've got Russia, you've got Germany, you've got Poland,
Well,
you've got.
I would say the main language technically is Russian, just because it was taken over. So it's kind of like Ukraine for sure. Like that, there's Ukrainian, but there's also a lot of people speak Russian, kind of as a.
Well, here's the
just-
important question
yeah.
about the language. What purpose does it serve to the story?
It's important to the story because a lot of the themes I'm working through the story have to do with identity and how language is important, like how I could see that, or I could just forget it and just say Russian was the main one. Everybody, it's like only spoken in certain like small provincial towns, or it was like eradicated and forget about it. I don't know. At this
I'd have
rate,
to see it in context.
right. It is very technical. Exactly. It's very true. I'm still building it, but I think how do you simplify? Like how here we go. How do you make sure you're not getting so complicated that you're getting kind of bogged down by detail and just focusing on the story to focus back on the story?
I think that's a great one to ask the two of us. Beforehand, let's welcome Elton. Hello there, Elton.
Hey, Elton.
Hello, how's
Hey, Elton.
everyone?
Very nice
Greetings.
to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
We will have questions
meet
for
you,
you in a
Elton.
moment here. But as far as getting bogged down in the details, that is probably the biggest risk of world building. Absolutely. Would you agree with that?
It can be, or not paying enough attention to details, but yeah, both are equally as hazardous.
I would say, as far as the language is concerned, again, it depends on the purpose it serves in the story. But more importantly, if it's getting in the way of you actually writing it, it's a problem. And more importantly, if it gets in the way of the readers understanding it or enjoying it, it's definitely a problem.
Okay.
Because above all, the readers need to be able to know what's going on and, not be confused by looking at it.
Gotcha.
And somebody asked what a short comic would be. I would say if you're doing your first comic, 24 pages.
What
Yeah.
I would say.
Uh,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, I was thinking about this whole problem with language because there's a very famous book here in Brazil. It's the one that we try to read when we are in school, but it's pretty much impossible because the author decided to use a very specific language from a group of we should call like or our bandoleiros here in Brazil, and it's you have a page in the book, like half of the page is a translation of the words he used in the page. So like you have one phrase and you have like two whole sentences explaining one word from that phrase. It's horrible. It's horrible. You get lost all the time. You can't follow the story because you can't understand anything. It's Portuguese, but I can't read it.
There you go. There is
Oh.
when it is definitely a problem. I would
It
say an
happens.
example.
It happens in tabletop too. There's a very tiny niche of fans who, comparatively tiny niche of fans who enjoy the world of Tecumel, which was created by M.A.R. Barker. I bought a Tecumel set back in the early 2000s. I wish I had it just so I could flip it. The thing is worth a very princely sum now, but it was the first game ever licensed to use the original Dungeons and Dragons engine. It came out in '75, and Professor Barker created the world of Tecumel very much like Tolkien created Middle Earth, and he created an entire set of working languages in the world of Tecumel, which is a very cool accomplishment. But you have to learn how to play, you have to learn how to read his languages to play the game. I'm not making that up. There's sections of the game rules where things are described in the languages of Tecumel, and it is a completely made up language. There's not like a Latin root in it you can fall back on, and
How many people played this thing?
I honestly I don't know. Gary told me once, because I asked him about Tecumel, that it sold like hotcakes. It was $25 back in 1975. Which
Holy crap! That's actually quite a bit of money.
That's the equivalent of paying like $300 for an RPG today.
Wow.
And yeah, and he said, people seemed to like it a lot, but they could literally, because of the it came with a full color vinyl map of a big section of the game world, a comb bound book, and it was 8.5 by 11 when D&D was just a little digest size. And Gary was like, yeah, we just about broke even on it. We couldn't afford to do a second run, and people seemed to like it. But I bought it because I'm like, hey, I can mine this for ideas for original D&D. No, I couldn't. But it seemed like so much of the function of the game was learning all these details about the game world. I mean, a friend of mine played the game with somebody who had been a regular at Professor Barker's table. And he said, we had a 4-hour shot It was me, one other guy, and the guy running the game. And we literally spent like 2 hours and 15 minutes on world building, backstory stuff. Like, you know, like, okay, you're playing a role playing game, you're playing D&D. I want to name my fighter Bob. Okay, you're Bob the fighter. In TechML, you're Joe Lun of Korzak, and the word Joe Lun, the first syllable refers to a house tribe, and the reason it's Joe is, and then there's 30 minutes of explanation of that. And then the second syllable, Lun, means, and then there's 30 minutes of explanation of that.
So for people who have a lot of spare time,
Yeah.
Rollmaster.
Rollmaster.
Rollmaster, yeah. I mean, the underlying mechanics were still original D&D. You know, it was roll a d20 versus an armor class. Here's some saving throws, but they made up for it on the on the end of all the world building stuff. You literally had to do. There was no faking your way through it. So, yeah, you know,
Well,
that's
I would say
that's a
good,
case
yeah.
of
That's one way to gatekeep. That's a great way to gatekeep. You can't get filthy casuals just like coming in with their boobs or whatever just to do it.
I
You know
wish
what I
I could. I wish I could come up with a gimmick like that. But anyway,
I would say a good example of a
That's
story
when you knew,
where,
like, it's a,
Oh, go ahead, Claire.
did we lose Claire? Claire,
I'm still here.
Okay.
finish.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Where was I? Oh, just that's the ultimate gatekeep. You don't have to worry about people just coming in if it's so complicated.
yeah.
So, Elton, tell us about your story, and then we'll answer Dark Stranger's question.
Well, one funny thing that happened while I was working in Pacifica, but I'm gonna talk about it later. The idea of Pacifica is something I had been developing around since 2018. I wanted to create a story. Here in Brazil, it's very common that most authors wants to create something in Brazil because we we basically don't have an industry around here. People do something like by themselves, and that's pretty much how I'm doing here too. But I'm a big fan of beat 'em up games. I'm a big fan of fighting games, and one thing I always wanted to is like, could we have a story with more female protagonists, but not because they are just like you see in some Japanese games, like you
Yeah.
have super strength for no reason, like the magic and stuff. Can we have something a little bit more realistic and go from there? Like you can start
Yeah.
with crime and stuff like that. And I start to think about what kind of characters you usually see in these games, what kind of characters you usually don't see in these games, and I start to build the cast. So
Well, I was going to say, actually, to just jump you ahead a little, mention the actual phenomena that inspired the story.
the
The
one we talked that
vigilantes.
yes, it was something weird that happened in Brazil. Like people know about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And for some time in the early 2000s, the late 90s, you started to have these groups of guys that were training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that started to go in the streets in like 10, 20, 30 guys. And if they saw someone that was committing a crime, they would just pile over them and beat the crap out of them in the middle of the streets. they would start to like, and the police was okay with that. Police was like, yeah, do our job for us.
It's like the reality of Miami Connection.
Yeah. I actually, I have a question for you, Elton, and this does pertain to prose a little bit, and it also has to do with Brazil, and it also has to do with the police. Have you ever read the story of the guy who tried to game with the Brazilian Special Forces undercover squad, like role playing game? Are you familiar with that story?
No, I'm not.
Okay, I was just wondering. It is an example of an after game report that is so completely wild. Like the game that they're playing and what goes on in the game has nothing to do with it. The guy who told the story, if it's not 100% BS, and there's people to this day that think it is, I don't know where on the fence I sit, but I'll say it's a hell of a fun read. But basically, one of the guys in his game at a comic gaming store in Brazil said, "Hey, do you mind if I invite a friend?" And of course, he's like, "Oh yeah, more people to game. That's fine." And these 6 Brazilian police officers show up, and it's they're Elton, I swear to God, I'm not slinging mud on the nation of Brazil, but he said these guys are friggin' scary. Like they stepped out of a cyberpunk game. That they've got like MP5s under their jackets. They show up with multiple bottles of booze, a couple of hookers each.
Sounds like a fun
One of them breaks out some cocaine through part of the game. And the guy who's running the game is like terrified out of his mind. He's like, Jesus Christ, what's happened here? But the story itself aside, it's exceptionally well written. It approaches prose in this guy describing the butt-clenching fear during this entire session and how afraid he was to say, well, yeah, your character died, to someone who had the ability to say, well, you're gonna die, game master. But none of that went down. It was they had fun playing the game, and he left, and that was the story. I just wondered if you had heard that before, Elton. I thought it was slightly pertinent to the
yeah,
topic.
I can understand where it might have been, where they might start telling the story, because here in Brazil we have it was our main nerd program, like it was called Jovem Nerd, young nerd here in Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
And they sometimes had this podcast with stories about games like that. Everything you told me, I believe it could be real if you are living in cities like São Paulo, or mostly São Paulo, because Rio de Janeiro don't have much of that thing with RPGs, but São Paulo is huge. So I do believe it's possible. I do believe they would have their guns, because they use their guns even in the bathroom. They never let go of them. And I do believe the part with the hookers too. Like, if you have this, you see these guys, you have these cops here in Brazil, they are usually in black. They are in the streets to kill. You need, like, they're kind of friendly, unless you are their target. You're not gonna have a good day.
The guy relating the story said, yeah, they were super friendly, and they like my buddy Kyle has said before when he's been on stream, like the most important thing to a game is snacks. They had snacks. They had big bottles of whiskey, and like I said, some cocaine came out at some point. So
they were ready. Yeah. Now, in fact, one of the main characters in the comic is an ex-cop from that kind of police force. So They are everywhere. Like you probably saw them in that movie. I don't remember how the movie is called in USA. Uh, I don't think it's Elite Force or something like that. It's in Brazil we call them Tropa de Elite. It's two movies that are focused on this police force in Rio de Janeiro. They are basically the real soldiers. They fight our little civil war that we have in Rio de Janeiro. But you were asking something.
Well, I was going to say, getting back to your comic, you've got a story about essentially it's three muscular, kick-ass, beautiful MMA fighters who essentially take to the streets as vigilantes. And whereas we've heard this plenty of times in the U.S., yours is actually based on something that kind of happened. That's what fascinates me.
Yeah, you have there are in fact four characters, but one of them works as a bodyguard for the other. So you have these girls that if they can't fight to protect themselves, you can't count with the police in their city. So they are used to keep the criminals at bay. Like some of them have a story with criminals before, others are just protecting their gym. And I started to think like, yeah, we saw this happen in Brazil once, and this is something that people don't talk about very much. We had these groups of people that went to fight in the street. Like you had a little moment in Brazil where we were like Final Fight, and we don't talk about it very much. So
first rule of Final Fight in Brazil: don't talk about Final Fight.
Exactly.
It's pretty much like that.
Okay, we got two comments here. One I'm just going to read out loud.
My answer to this question is going to be boring now.
Fiona, let's all give her good thoughts because she said Category 3 hurricane. 3 or 5 or 4 or 5 is legit trouble.
Oh, she was talking about how she was laughing because everybody's losing their minds over the hurricane, and she's like, Category 1, whatever.
Oh, it's a Category 1?
Where she is right now, yeah.
Oh, okay, so she's fine. All right.
If Fiona, if I'm wrong, please let us know because I want you safe. But from my understanding, it looked like you were telling about your opinion of hurricanes like Californians do with earthquakes.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I don't give a shit unless it's a level 6.
Yeah, for a minute I was kind of imagining you sitting in your home with alligators flying past the window, but now we've got a question from Dark Stranger.
Dark Stranger asked me if I recall, Ishi mentioned that you drew pages for a cyberpunk story. If so, did you self-learn or go to school? And how long did it take you to get good? Short answer, I did go to school. I went to the Watts Atelier of the Arts in Encinitas, California, which was founded by the artist who is best known for doing the Army of Darkness poster. So I had a lot of fun going to that school for 2.5 years. So there's that. Art was great, but you guys were talking earlier about discipline, and being an artist needs probably just as much discipline as writers do. And I found that I don't have it. So,
you lack discipline.
Well, it was more, when I'm getting 2 hours of sleep a night, and that sleep is, racked with horrible nightmares of, drawing noses. And, I've got that deadline going because, actually this was when we were doing the DC job. It's like, you know what? Working for other people just isn't for me. Art is something I'm going to do for fun. So I dropped that and found another way to make money. So.
I remember the assistant editor wanted you to ditch me and work for DC by yourself. And you're like, I can't.
It's like, no, there are many reasons why I can't. And it's like, even if I wanted to take you up on that, you're my husband.
Yeah. She was a feminist.
We won't get into her right now. We are having
Was
fun
she
and being happy.
thirsty? Was she kind of thirsty for Cat? Yeah.
Oh, possibly.
You never know. Sunday we went to the swap meet before the explosion started, and Kat got hit on by two dykes.
Yeah.
One was a big fat bull dyke, and the other was kind of this rail thin pixie girl.
But this girl, she didn't really see me in person. I think she only saw like a picture of me. It was all in talks. She was in New York when we were in California. And then when she did come to California, there were opportunities to meet up, and that never happened. So I don't know, but
I don't know. During our early days in comics, there were a lot of people that tried to steal you away, thinking that somehow you were going to do their project for them.
Well, yeah, that's unfortunately, and I'm sure the artists in this chat can agree. If you have talent, people will want you to work on their stuff for free. I'm sure with writers, it's the same thing. I know you've had a couple of people where it's like, I have this great idea, and you're like, no.
No, the scary part is when they somehow get your phone number and start leaving messages on your machine talking about how they've got this great idea for a novel that's going to blow the whole thing about Pearl Harbor wide open. The truth is, the Japanese were set up by aliens. Aliens actually did the attack to frame Japan, and we were going to bust this open and go on Art Bell, damn it.
Well, A, he didn't know who you
I'd
were,
read that.
and B, he was 100% serious.
Yeah, this really happened.
There were other things about it too, but they were kind of
Holy cats.
Yeah, it was kind of racist. Some of the other things he said. The other scary thing is, you've made it. Oh, we lost Elton.
Oh, no.
Oh.
Oh, damn.
I found the Brazilian Death Squad story too. I was going to send him the link.
Oh,
here we go.
Back.
Oh,
okay,
there
you're
he
back,
is.
Elton. But
Yeah.
but the other one is, you've made it when you get skanky middle-aged women sending you nudes dressed as Rogue
No. She wasn't nude. She had Christmas ornaments.
on her things. Yes.
Yes.
why?
Nope.
Yeah, why, Cat?
I got nothing to say about that.
That was a Christmas card I got.
Only you. She knows both of us.
Yeah, she knew both of us, but only addressed to me.
Oh, my
shit.
God.
Okay.
Okay, so Claire and Elton are both having connection problems.
I
Well,
reckon
I'm not
listen
by
to
my
me.
house.
Okay, so
I think you guys answered my question, so I gotta head up because I gotta leave my mom with my son for too long because I said I was.
okay, real
going
quickly
to work
before you
out.
go, Claire.
Yeah.
I'm gonna watch Nosketh this weekend,
It's arriving
Yes!
tomorrow, in fact.
and then I would like to interview you about it. Okay? Doesn't have to be immediate, but just at some point I want to interview you about it. Cool?
I think
she's gone.
I'm here. I'm still here.
Okay, that's all.
Okay. Yes. Highly recommend. It's so
Cool.
good. Anyway, see
All
you
right.
guys later.
Take
Have
care.
a good night.
Good night.
All right. Bye-bye. Good
Bye.
night.
Nice to have met you, Claire.
Good night.
Good to meet you too. Although it's very brief. All right. Night.
For the play. Bye.
Oh, Dark Stranger. Feminist editor wanted Cat to drop Ishii and possibly Thirsty for Cat. Considering how feminists are the ultimate cat ladies and Cat being a double win.
Oh, mercy.
Well, she went on to work for Bitch Magazine, so I'm not making that up.
Wow.
Yeah. All right. Let's see.
I thought that was just a gag from the movie Best in Show, but no, there really is a magazine called Bitch.
Yes. But I'm with you that if someone said, no, it's for dog lovers, it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
But it isn't. It's for feminists.
No.
Yeah.
No, for cat lovers.
Cat. So, Elton, since we've got you on the
Capital
air,
K-H-E lovers.
do you have any questions that you'd like to ask me since you're on your first project?
Yeah. You see, I saw. I don't remember. You showed some shows ago. No? You showed it some shows ago. Sorry, my English is horrible.
Oh no, you're doing
Actually,
fine.
your English is great.
Yeah, it's
Thanks. How you made you sent the reference for your artist, like you sent pictures for the case files Arkham. You
Right.
sent like pictures for each page, and you think when I was working with the artist, like in my case, I the artists have a little bit more control of what we're doing, but you think it helped, or you think you had more trouble doing that and the artist ended up doing more adaptations over what you sent to him?
Well, the thing is, it's actually very common in comics for there to be someone who just does the layout and then hands it over to a skilled artist. So having someone actually do layouts before the artist gets to it is pretty normal. Hey Fiona, we'll talk to you in a minute.
Greetings.
Hello.
But so no, actually, that's not uncommon. Some people call it the Frank Miller method. The other thing is, for a brief while, the artist said, "Well, I think you're kind of constraining me with these layouts. I'd like a little more freedom." So I said, "Okay." 3 pages later, he said, I wouldn't mind you going back to doing the pictures and the layouts for me."
And I know it's different, but still requires it. Bill, when working with artists for supplement books for gaming in general, do you tell the artist, okay, we'd really like this scene depicted, or do you say, this is the theme, go to town?
well. It's interesting you asked me that, and I have two answers to that question. First of all, with me, generally speaking, whether it's been just the freebie projects that I've created over the years, I have asked for specific artists and said, you know what, I think this would be a great scene. TSR veteran artist Tracy Lesh, he's a friend of mine, lives down here in Central Florida. When we were getting ready to publish, or I should say, when Frog God was getting ready to publish Lost Crypt, I was like, hey, there's this one encounter area in the module. I really, 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 really want this to be a centerpiece illustration of what's going down in this encounter. And I would really, really, really like Tracy Lesh to do it. So they were absolutely okay with that. And with the other pieces, and I got to say, I had fantastic artists, not just Tracy, on the whole piece of work. The artists would pick out, certain encounter areas and illustrate those, and that was a creative approach there as far as art in a module project. Now, last week I had TSR veteran Al Hammock on the show, and I talked to him about art in modules, like how that process worked. Did writers go to the artists and say, look, for this page, I want the knight like leaning down and scooping the bag of gold up and running an orc through with his sword, And he said very much so. They worked hand in glove with the art department at TSR to create some of the most iconic pictures that you would see in classic Dungeons and Dragons modules. I mentioned Tracy Lesh earlier. Tracy, like, everybody knows what a mind flayer is. I mean, you get certain D&D images from osmosis, even if you don't play the tabletop game. Gary said, yeah, Tracy, a mind flayer, they look like Cthulhu. They got kind of a squid head and tentacles. And so Tracy drew the first ever mind flayer based on Gary's input. And that's the way everybody draws mind flayers today. So, it was very much a process for me, and in times past, of working very closely with artists. Now, layouts, I know diddly over squat about art layout, and although you've given me a good question to ask Al the next time I have one of the TSR guys on the show, or Al Hammond,
Great.
any one of the other TSR guys. But just as a consumer of it, I've seen a lot of fun layout tricks. Like if you have a first edition monster manual, the rust monster is in a little outlined box, and he's got his little nose up against the corner of the box he's drawn in, and it's dissolving, like he's eating the border of
I've
his
seen
own
that.
picture. And another one is leprechauns. In the entry for leprechaun, it notes that they can be mischievous and steal little items and such. Well, up in the corner of the page, there's a leprechaun doing this, and the title entry for leprechaun is in his hand. Like the actual text, like he's reached up off the page and is pulling it down
Cool.
to make off with it.
Real quick.
So I'm sorry, go ahead, Kat.
No, I don't mean to interrupt, but I want to make sure that Fiona gets introduced.
Yes. Hello, Fiona. How you doing?
I was eating. I was eating really quick. I was like, I'm hungry.
Oh, sorry.
You're hungry.
Did
I was
you
like,
need more time to eat?
Yeah, I had to eat a little bit before work, and then I was like, wait, I'm starving.
Well,
So that's why I had
actually,
myself muted.
well, now that you're on, real quickly, I don't know if you've gotten the intro to the show. The Writers Room was a show I started a year ago, where we would do a weekly thing, the Writers Circle, and we would address questions from the audience, or we would do topics. And because you yourself are very versed in this stuff, would you be interested in showing up every Wednesday or every other Wednesday to do this?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be a little bit late just because the way my work usually goes, unless they happen to give me that Wednesday off.
What's a
You
better
never
day
know.
for you?
Nice.
Well, honestly, I'm more than happy to pop in whenever I can.
All right, cool. Very cool.
That's the only
So-
downside to my job. I don't have a set schedule.
I see. Okay, we got a question from Just Passerby.
So the layout you speak of is also known as the storyboard.
No, that actually, I'm glad you asked that. No, it is not. That is a misnomer. That is a product of the aughts. When everyone kept saying that a movie is, or a comic is a movie on paper. No, it isn't. Sequential storytelling and storyboards are vastly different. Would you not agree, Kat?
Oh yeah, totally.
And comics that are drawn as storyboards are awful. So actually, no, this is a panel layout, not a storyboard.
In the storyboard stuff, isn't that more for the camera people to know, like, where to place the shots?
Correct. And how to move the camera across images. And when you'd see comics that were drawn that way, you could tell, and they weren't very good.
Actually, they were really static and boring. Like there should be a camera moving here. Trenton, to Samueli.
Oh,
Okay,
well,
should we?
I'll see anyway.
Okay. What would your character be in that setting? I think they're in the.
Oh,
middle.
okay. I see. Never mind. Oh, what?
Okay.
There we go.
God, we got some serious lag here. So anyway, now that we've got Fiona in, do you have anything you'd like to bring up about what you're writing?
I'm faster than George R.R. Martin. I'm already on like issue 6 of book 5, but I try to at least keep the issues in reserve, so I'm like 4+ issues ahead. So technically on the blog, book 4 is done. So
Okay,
0,
you're
1,
only
2,
publishing
3,
via
and
blog,
4.
huh? I mean, I looked you up on Kindle and I couldn't find you.
No, I'm doing it on the blog first, so that way I can learn about formatting and all that stuff for later, because I want to
I can
complete
help
the
you out with
series,
that.
and then I'll launch it on the Kindle area and for physical copies and stuff.
Smart. Okay, we can do. That is always a good episode, talking about formatting and then doing print.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, because
that,
there's a lot. Oof.
the world
lot
of
in-
print can be a minefield, as you know.
Yes. Dark Stranger, to the room. For comics or any other medium with art as a focus, what level of art or artist would you say should be the base level to strive for or to make your work presentable? Do you mean like the difference between like Frazetta versus a crayon drawing, or what do you mean by base level to strive for?
Well, actually, here I know how to answer that. First off, Elton, you there?
All right, I'm here.
You were a writer who hired an artist to do your
Yes.
book. What did you look for?
When I decided to do the book, like when I went completely insane and decided to do a comic book, uh, I I was looking for an artist that, well, draw, in this case, like the females in a way that would fit with what I had in mind. Like I had this idea for I before I wrote, before I showed him the the whole the script I had created a document for each character with the basic physical traits like height, the shape, kind of body, like with examples of
Right.
photographs and everything. So I showed him, and to be honest, I saw an artist that had some characters from his own that fit the idea I had in mind, and I first hired him for a commission. I wanted to see what he could do with the characters that I had created already. And once I saw how he made a character, I asked him if he was interested in working in a comic, and he showed me if he already had some pages done before. He showed me that he was working in a comic for himself, but it was not finished yet. He showed
Okay.
like just the lines, and I say, yeah, let's try that. And we start to working, and he even delivered me some pages today. They're looking pretty nice so far. Uh, I think the most important thing you have to do is like you need to see if the artist fits what you have in mind. You cannot transform the style of an artist later. If you hire an artist that likes to make something like really cartoons and want him to do something more realistic, you're going to have a unnecessary problem with an artist,
Oh, yeah.
because I had this problem before too. It was a mistake I committed, but I managed to learn this before I went to the comic with an artist I worked before. And well, sadly, he died last year.
Oh
But
man.
yeah, but you need to know. That's why an artist that need it needs to build a portfolio, because you need to know his art before you hire him.
Sorry, let me interrupt. What you've pointed out here, in context to Dark Stranger, is what I'll say. You brought up the most important thing for comics: anatomy. Now, your anatomy does not have to be perfect, but your anatomy needs to communicate what you're looking at. It needs to communicate that physical form, and it has to look like it's in motion. That is the most important thing, in my opinion. And as Elton brought up, what did he ask for first? Can you draw these bodies the way I want? I mean,
Yeah, and I'm gonna be honest with you. It's a bit sad, but also amazing how many artists don't know how or don't want to draw more fit females. And I'm only talking about feet. I'm not talking those gigantic
not-
forms that you see.
What, kind of like Linda Hamilton from Terminator 2 kind of physique?
Well, something like more to the bodybuilder style, like the Kiki Vice I showed Ishi and Cat that day. You have these girls that are really in the gym. Like here in Brazil, we have Vivi Winkler. This, yeah,
Oh, okay.
that.
So what
You
I would
see?
say, that is like the really buff end of a fitness model.
Absolutely.
And that's what's her. It doesn't like she looks like she abuses too much steroids, because I've seen pictures of women that
Yeah.
abuse steroids to get really beefy. I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yeah,
Yeah.
No, they are.
scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, that's what I noticed when I was trying to get an artist to do Bombshell. Was this is the kind of body type I wanted as well for Bombshell, and a lot of the artists that I contacted could either do the bikini body or the muscle monster, but not in between, and had a very hard time even conceiving that you could have a feminine muscular body.
Oh, I do have
Yeah.
a little bit of an example of, like, I found my artist, Old Khan, through the fact that he made some comics, but I liked how painterly his style looked, and I thought it would be a good fit for my book covers, because a lot of book covers, when you're looking at a lot of indies, they don't stand out as much.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, because you can notice that some book covers use the same kind of cover art from one series to the next, because it's like common use cover art.
Yeah. And it's pretty bad when you start recognizing the images from multiple covers.
Yep.
Hey, I recognize that torso.
Or I recognize that ship or that battle damage.
Mhm.
Yeah. I would say that's another topic that a lot of people miss is do not phone in the cover. Pay the money to get a cover, especially if you're a prose book.
And
Because,
no, I was just going to mention, if the prospective artist you're scouting out says, "Well, I do most of my work in Poser," just keep moving. Just keep moving. Just, yeah.
Well, that's the first thing out of their mouth, most definitely. I mean, Poser, like anything, is a tool, but
Yeah.
your art doesn't stop with it.
Yeah, and you can spot. Unfortunately, I mean, first impressions are the lasting one. And, oh my god!
Oh no!
Oh my eyes! Oh
so you were speaking of lasting impressions.
yeah, but and I would think that's probably the Poser artist. Sorry, but no, if you're looking particularly at self-published and small press books, and it's like, Poser done not so well is a little like a half step above photographing Barbie dolls set up. They look plasticky and unreal and just doesn't it doesn't work. So yeah, if your prospective artist is like, yeah, I do my work in Poser, just say, that's great, God bless you, I'll let you know, and just move on.
I mean, doesn't that like help people understand what angle the body has to be at? I guess if you're drawing something,
And the
Or, like,
shadows
from-
and the... What it is that the problem is I've seen people who use Poser who do it well.
Mhm.
And what it is they don't know how to... When people do it badly, they draw them like mannequins rather than people.
Yeah,
And
that's what I'm getting at. This
people
completely
are fleshy. There's give to their flesh. There's always kind of a slight blur or drag to their motion. They're not... Well, I guess it would be the difference between, say, a Royo painting and a Boris painting.
Yeah.
Boris's paintings are people, but they're all posed. They don't look like they're moving.
Mm-mm.
If you look like a Frazetta, it doesn't matter. Their characters, those are people.
Yeah, and I think it's something that sadly might start to be even more common now, because one software that many artists are using nowadays, because it's a really good software, is Clip Studio Paint, and it comes with a poser light inside the program. So they are really starting to depend on it, and it's starting to show nowadays, because, well, it's there, it's useful, but people are not ready to use it well yet.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be clear, I'm not slagging on digital art. I mean, you can produce some absolutely eye-wateringly beautiful stuff with digital art. It is a little more tongue in cheek, but yeah, it comes down to the tools and bad use of poser. I mean, you drive all the way down to the bottom of Uncanny Valley and dig a trench when you use digital tools badly. You know, everybody looks plasticky and weird.
Oh, one thing I will say, a lot of people on the Bird site, they undervalue their art way too much. It's like, wait, $50 for like the whole shebang, where not gonna lie, that's like too little. Some of these people should start off at $100 or more. Seriously. Like,
Well,
just try to divide it by hour. Like, how many hours do you normally work on something, and you're not valuing yourself even at minimum wage?
It's a bit funny,
Yeah.
but I managed to work with like already 3 or 4 arts before, trying to make them start to doing commissions. Like, when you don't have a name for yourself, it's difficult, because you have guys that, you know, they do work like that artist that died. His name was Wal Souza. Oh, this is one of the characters from our comic, the
Yeah, that's beautiful.
ex-police
Elton.
force.
Mhm.
Yes, she was part of the police force before, but after some issues, she became a bodyguard for one of the other characters. This is the art we're gonna have in the comic, so I think people will like it. I think it's gonna be good. I think it's gonna look good.
Yeah,
at
that's
least.
great.
I hope my writing will fit this art too.
Again, put it this way: if Bendis was paid $1,000 per page to ruin something I enjoyed once upon a time, then anybody can make it. Seriously, at this point.
This is why I like you, Fiona.
Whoa.
You don't screw around. You just flat out say, "Look, this sucks."
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm gonna have my test of proof of fire soon enough, but I hope it's gonna work out too.
I mean, all I've really been doing by my writing is looking at different books, and even if the wheelhouse doesn't match what I want, I've started to really like look at the nuts and bolts of books. That's why it's taken me forever to read certain things now, because I stop and look like, oh, that's an interesting tool for the toolbox. Yoink.
Okay, well, we're coming up on an hour here, and I think this was a successful first try for the writers' room.
Mhm. Most definitely.
Oh, nice.
Unfortunately, the old band didn't show up. I guess they didn't get the email in time. But I would like to make this a weekly thing. You guys cool with it?
Yeah.
I mean, the audience. I'm asking the audience.
Oh,
Well, I'll definitely show up when I can.
Well, usually I am the audience, so I'm cool with that too.
I just
All
hope I
right.
got something to contribute. I mean,
Yeah.
I write fantasy stereo instructions, guys.
No, but there are tons of people out there that want to write modules for RPGs, that want to write those sorts of things. So, you do contribute.
All right.
All
right.
I say you contribute.
Okay.
Yeah.
if you-
Besides, I have one of my buddies who is a GM also, mostly for Vampire the Masquerade and stuff like that, and he writes his own modules too. He's put them up on Drive-Thru RPG.
Excellent. That's the
Nice.
way to do it. Self-publish.
That's
Cool. Okay. Well, again, thank you for joining us, everyone, for the resurrection of the writers' room.
Yes.
Say goodnight, everyone.
Good night.
Good night,
Good night.
everyone.
Good night, everyone.